We started this conversation on Friday talking about Nigeria's automotive industry. The question is, where are we currently? How much progress have we made, and how have our policies enhanced Nigeria's the capacity of Nigerians to be able to not just make their vehicles, but also to be able to buy those vehicles. We have with us this morning Mr. Jalani Aliyu, who is the Director General, National Automotive Design and Development Council. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you.
Well, may I ask you, where are we currently with our automotive policy? Because for a number of people, they will say that they have been flip-flops in terms of policy. But for you, who is an operator in the industry, where would you say Nigeria's automotive industry currently stands? Yes,
I think a lot of progress has been made. Let's look a little bit at the history of the automotive sector in the country. We all remember in the 70s and 80s the 504s and the Beetles, Volkswagen, Peugeot, Namco, Leyland were all operating in Nigeria. Then around about 1986, the price of a barrel of crude oil crashed from $26 to below $10 per barrel. That sent the country into a recession. So Nigerians woke up overnight and they could no longer buy those vehicles that were being produced in the country. And those companies had to close shop and leave. What we're implementing now is a National Automotive Industry Development Plan to resuscitate automotive production, and it has done that. So we went from zero production to an installed capacity of 400,000 units per year. We're not there yet, but there's significant activity in local assembly and production of vehicles currently in Nigeria. As we speak, well over $1 billion has been invested by credible companies, Dangote Sino Trucks, Dangote, Peugeot, Innoson, Larry Shutu, Honda. They're all here producing vehicles in the country. So a lot of progress has been made. Yes, we still have a whole lot more to go, but significant progress has been made in the nation's automotive sector.
If my memory serves me well, I think it was about a year ago, there was some complaint about a policy which had come out, which the federal government came up with to encourage Nigerians. They said it was because of the economic hardship. They wanted Nigerians to be able to bring in vehicles. And I know that automotive players in the automotive industry, protested against that, saying that it was counterproductive to their own business because it meant that a lot more Nigerians would prefer to import their cars than buy made in Nigeria goods. Has that now been reversed?
Well, working towards that, you're referring to the 2020 finance bill, which reduced the levy on imported vehicles from 35% down to 5%. This is a temporary measure, and as we review the NADDC itself, once it comes back from the National Assembly, is going in as an executive bill. So once it comes back and goes into effect, it will reverse this temporary measure in the best interest of the whole economy, not just the producers, but even the end user.
Well, you say you're working to reverse it, but it certainly must have had its effect. If it was done in 2020 and this is 2022, I'm sure you've had enough time to be able to assess how that has affected those who are currently producing vehicles in the country. Were they taken into account when that policy was made?
It has made a difference because the auto policy itself is a measure to promote local production. So when you make it easier to bring in vehicles, it does affect local production. But we're working very closely with all the relevant stakeholders to make sure that at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody.
Can we measure in clear terms just what impact it has had? I mean, you say it has made a difference. You haven't qualified what sort of difference it has made. Is it positive or negative?
It has made it a little bit harder for local producers to compete because they do need that difference when they sell their vehicles compared to those brought in. When that difference is lessened, it makes it harder to compete. But like I mentioned, as we speak, there is a good understanding of what the automotive sector can do or has done to the local economy. So I believe all necessary stakeholders are now working together with us to ensure that what is done is in the best interest of the nation in general.
Okay. So right now, where we stand with despite or in spite of that particular policy, it would seem that still it hasn't discouraged those who are trying to set up plants here in Nigeria. How would you qualify the uptake of made in Nigeria vehicles by not just Nigerians, but perhaps even government?
Yes, you're very right. It actually hasn't discouraged investors. Just recently, Dangote Pujo started assembling vehicles in Kaduna, so that is a great development. They're really, like I mentioned, there's an installed capacity to be able to produce up to 400,000 vehicles per year. But patronage has really been very low. We do need more federal government MDAs, more state governments, more government and private institutions to really buy made in Nigeria and assembled in Nigeria vehicles. It has never been a problem. The challenge has never been the ability to build vehicles in the country. The challenge has been the offtake. So we believe government can do more at the federal and state levels. Private institutions can do more. Companies that are working on government projects can do more to really patronize those vehicles assembled or produced in the country. Because we must remember, each time you bring in a fully built vehicle, you are exporting jobs and opportunities. Each time you buy a vehicle assembled or produced in the country, you're creating a better future for Nigeria. So it is imperative that we support the local industry in the best interest of the future of this great nation.
That's right. I mean, it would seem that it's just common sense, it would seem. Interestingly, the gentleman with whom we started this conversation last week, Friday, is a Nigerian lawmaker. And there have been questions we asked him questions as to why lawmakers, because we did notice that there was a conversation amongst lawmakers as to whether or not made in Nigeria vehicles was going to be their choice of official cars. And we saw how that conversation went. It never materialized that Nigerian vehicles were going to be, or made in Nigeria vehicles are going to be purchased for the use of our lawmakers. So there were questions as to why that wasn't the case. You are very much in the industry. Why do you think that we have to persuade the federal government, for instance, to see the advantage in patronizing or making sure that the vehicles that a lot of our top government functionaries use, maybe even the ones that, are used in other arms of government apart from, say, the executive itself, are made in Nigeria vehicles, which is supposed to be an incentive. Isn't it common sense?
We're doing all that we can. The NADDC and our parent ministry and Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, and all relevant stakeholders to really showcase the advantages of made in Nigeria vehicles. One of the things that people really need to acknowledge and understand now is that these vehicles are put together or assembled in Nigeria meet global standards. When a Honda or a Hyundai is put together in Nigeria or produced here, or when Innocent produces his vehicles here, all these companies must meet minimum global standards, because now the way vehicles and companies operate is global and regional.
Do you fear that that could be the reason they are reluctant to take up the vehicles, that perhaps they do not quite meet up with the standards?
Or the vehicle do.
Or do you think it's a matter of design? I mean, you are also looking at design. Is it a question of how the cars themselves look?
The cars, a vehicle made in Nigeria, like I was about to say, a Hyundai made here and a Hyundai made in South Korea are the same. Because these companies now are global, they're international, and they do not circumvent when it comes to standards of vehicles. There's no compromise. So we will continue to promote Nigerian vehicles, and we'll continue to make people understand that these vehicles are as good as the vehicles made anywhere. Maybe there's a lack of that fact, but that's a reality. These vehicles are the same. We're moved. Probably when you say a vehicle made in Nigeria, people expect it to be a ramshackle vehicle that looks like it came out of the 80s or 70s. It's not. A lot of the vehicles that you see on the road in Abuja and around the country are actually assembled or made here. So we will continue to promote how good they are, how comparative they are positively to vehicles made from anywhere around the world.
Well, I'm asking you that question, I mean, about design, because I was saying that I don't know if you've done any research into the sort of vehicles that Nigerians prefer. I do know that oftentimes, even for people who buy second-hand vehicles, there are questions as to, oh, where did you buy it from? Or what spec is it? You know, and there's always a preference for the American spec, for instance. I do not know if you've done any research to find out perhaps why Nigerians, and this is minus government, but why Nigerians themselves might not be able to take up the made in Nigeria vehicles, or might not want to take up the Nigerian vehicles.
I perfectly understand. I remember a couple of decades ago, the vehicles that came out of the U.S. had powered windows and air conditioning, power steering, and the Peugeots that we had didn't really have much of that. Or some of the vehicles that were made for Africa, even though they were made outside Africa, when they were made for Africa, they were below our standards. There was something that was lacking in them. Those were the old days. Today, the way vehicles are designed and produced, there's a certain level of features and safety embedded in the vehicles that's global. So those days are gone. A vehicle made here, an Innocon, has all these features that other vehicles do. And when you talk about vehicles, you're talking about levels. You know, you have entry-level, mid-level, luxury cars. So that is what determines what features a vehicle has, not necessarily whether it's made in Nigeria or Japan. So those days are gone. Those American specs, and actually a Nigerian specs vehicle would be better for anybody because the suspension, the power of the air conditioning, because of our extreme conditions. When these vehicles are made in Nigeria for the Nigerian climate, they are acclimatized, they're homologated to be most in tune with our extreme terrain and geography and climate.
It's interesting to know that about the suspensions of the vehicles. But generally, I imagine that a lot of the vehicles that are made will be for entry level.
In Nigeria?
Yes.
No, there's a whole gamut of vehicles, entry level, mid-level, and luxury level. Commercial trucks, commercial vans, all different types of makes and models.
So what then is preventing our government from taking up these vehicles en masse?
Like I mentioned, we'll continue to, we've promoted our Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Nia Adebayo, just last week promoted Nigerian-made vehicles to all the executive governors of Nigeria, making them aware of the need for them to patronize made in Nigeria vehicles. This was at the National Economic Council meeting. So we will continue to support such promotion. I think the more we do that, the more the decision makers and leaders will understand that these vehicles are good for them and that we must patronize our local industry.
Okay, let me flip this to Lagos. I understand my colleagues have questions for you. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Marco. Well, Mr. Aliyu, one of the questions that comes to my mind readily, first of all, is to ask you, at what point did we even jeopardize the previous policies that we had at the federal level? Well, in some preceding governments had legislated or maybe issued a policy that only Nigeria assembled or produced vehicles should be used by government at all levels. Well, yes, this was under the military governments at the time, but I don't know because I don't remember those policies being reversed in any way, manner, shape, or form. So at what point did we stop to execute that policy as it was back then?
Yes. Well, there's what we have. We have the executive orders 3 and 5 that are in effect. I think the challenge is the lack of patronage or the MDAs that are being asked that are mandated by these orders to buy these made in Nigeria vehicles and products aren't doing that. So the problem isn't with the policy as per se or with the orders or with the ability to offer these vehicles. It has been more of a personal choice not to buy them, which really shouldn't be the case. I believe we need to be more patriotic, both as individuals, as government entities and bodies, to really promote and support a local industry. Because when we do that, we're supporting our own economy, we're creating jobs, we're creating a better future, not just for ourselves, but for all those coming after us. As we review the automotive policy, which is now underway, and when it comes out of the National Assembly and is signed into law, we believe that will further make it harder not to buy these made in Nigeria vehicles. So we will continue to work with all necessary stakeholders. I think there's a lack of understanding of how imperative it is to support local economy. So we'll continue to work with all local and international stakeholders to ensure that the vehicles produced continue to be really at par, and that all these executive orders are not flaunted.
Well, it's very interesting where you say that MDAs are not doing what an order of the president, states. I believe that there will be some approving authority somewhere, maybe the permanent secretary in the ministry, department, or agency, or the general manager or director general of any of those agencies. Well, that's work for them. I'm sure you may not be able to speak to that. But you talked about the lack of understanding of what's in the whole gamut of encouraging this policy of government to work. How many people potentially can this automotive industry in Nigeria employ? The primary, direct or indirect employment that you often speak about. Perhaps that can be some form of impetus to champion this patronage.
Yes. With an installed capacity of over 400,000 units per year, and at the current level of production, we have about 50,000 direct and indirect jobs in Nigeria as a result of the automotive industry. This is at this current level of production. So the multiplier effect, if we are able to increase local production, if local patronage gives local production the opportunity to increase, I think we're looking at maybe nothing less than about 600,000 jobs within a year or so, if these companies are given the chance to operate at maximum capacity. And with the automotive sector, for every one job on the factory floor, you create at least 10 jobs down the value chain. So the multiplier effects are really huge. The automotive sector has the ability to really add a lot of value to the economy, create a lot of jobs, and at the end of the day, create meaningful opportunities for people at all levels of employment.
So installed capacity 400,000, actual production, I mean, the vice president had put it at, was it 14,000 about last year or 2 years ago? So clearly a huge gap. But let me come at this in another route. I mean, you're well known for your work at General Motors, GM, and I mean, coming from Nigeria, Sokoto State, going all the way to the top, designing really nice vehicles, then coming back home. Clearly, you'll have seen, differences. You'll have learned, okay, this is how things operate there, and this is how things operate here. I mean, in terms of government support policies and patronage and the rest. How would you describe, the experience for you leaving GM, now coming to work with government and trying to champion this cause? What has been the perhaps biggest difference or challenge for you to grapple with coming here?
Well, my love for cars and the automotive industry started at a very early stage. They say I was bitten by the bug. So I had always wanted to be a car designer, and looked around, and there weren't any schools in Nigeria or Africa in general to study that. So I traveled to the United States. I got an opportunity to study at the College for Creative Studies. When I left to go to the U.S., it wasn't because I was tired and I wanted to leave Nigeria. I left because I wanted to better myself in the hopes that one day I'd get the opportunity to add value to my home country. Working for GM was a great experience. I had the opportunity to design a number of vehicles, including the Chevrolet Volt electric car. And when I got this opportunity to add value to my home nation, it's something I couldn't say no to at all, because I've always looked forward to that opportunity. I'm very glad I'm back home. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to play my small role in making Nigeria better. Yes, there are challenges everywhere, but I believe one must never be a nation, a society, must never be defined by its current challenges. It can only be defined by its dreams and aspirations and by what it can achieve. It's never about what we have now, but it's about what can we create, what better opportunities can we create for our nation. So I believe there are no impossibilities, God willing. There's only a better Nigeria to build. So I'm very excited and happy to be back here. Yes, there are challenges, but we must all work together to resolve those issues and create a better nation for all of us now and for generations to come after us.
Okay, well, you haven't quite spoken to any of the challenges that you have encountered, and I can, leave that, perhaps for later. But let me quickly ask you, do you think that we made the right choices in terms of the kind of cars that we have made for our people? Because, there are questions as to the buying capacity, the economic capacity of many Nigerians who desire to own vehicles. Are our cars, made in Nigeria cars, affordable enough for the average worker to be able to own one?
You see, like they say, life is a journey, and a lot of things there's a learning process and there's evolutionary process in a lot of things. There is need to provide vehicles that are less expensive. And yes, there also is need to provide vehicles that would be more in tune with the culture, climate, terrain, and economic structure. And that is why our agency, the NADDC, is currently working on 2 vehicle designs. We've designed the vehicles. We're now in the product development and engineering phase. These are vehicles specifically that we sat down, acknowledged and understood the actual challenges that Nigerians face in transportation. So we came up with these 2 vehicles. I may not be able to go too much in detail on them because of confidentiality, but these are vehicles that would really fit the bill. We believe they are the perfect mousetrap that would address these issues of affordability, attainability, and usability in our extreme environments. And we will also continue, we've started to continue to discuss with the stakeholders that produce vehicles on these types of vehicles, like you mentioned, that would really address these issues. We do need vehicles that are cheaper. We do need vehicles that are even more in tune with the extreme environment. It's a journey, and we'll continue to do that. We also hope that there's more R&D both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria to really design, develop, produce, and deliver those vehicles that would be the most applicable as per our extreme conditions.
Well, you have said it's a journey. We intend to stay with you on that journey, and we hope that you'll be back here to give us updates on how that journey is going. We have to thank you for coming on this morning. Mr. Jelani Aliyu is the Director General, National Automotive Design and Development Council, NADDC. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.